what I was doing. So like at our third restaurant, which is kind of a copy of our first restaurant, kind of I just went through the same thing, and like I grossly under. I love these opening a restaurant. There's nothing that'll humble you like opening a restaurant, even if you think this would be my 21st, 22nd year in the business, and I'm still every time I do something like this, I'm like, well, didn't think of that, or I thought
Right.
this was going to work, and that was a horrible idea. But I didn't realize like I didn't think about. Yeah, I have an incredible kitchen staff at all my restaurants, but at the first restaurant, but I didn't really think that we built this menu and we built this restaurant together. That when we opened, it was a smaller menu, and that these guys helped me with the processes and the structure, and that they're and we just said, oh cool, let's plop this over three
Right.
cities over. I built the restaurant. I mean, I designed it. I knew it was more efficient than this one. I learned some things, but then I'm like, cool, staff, they're all in here, and I'm like, oh, these guys don't know anything, and we have 12 sauces to make, dough, 40 vegetables to cut, chicken wings, French fries from scratch, like everything. And I'm like, this is not going to work out. So
Yeah.
they're wonderful. My general manager hired most of the staff there, including the kitchen staff, and I trained them, and it's been incredible. But like, I didn't, I like, oh, let's just move it over there. I didn't really think about
Yeah.
the
Same thing
amount of
with
like
us.
prep
Yeah.
training. Like not even like these guys crush it on the line, but like they don't know what they don't know. They don't know
Yeah.
what the food's supposed to look like.
That's so funny that you say that because I went through the same thing, and you forget that, in your original restaurant, I'm sure when you opened, it's probably so long ago for you, and it was so long
Yeah.
ago for me when I first started there that like our menu was large, but we added things over time. So it wasn't like they all got bombarded all at once with how
Yeah.
to do everything. Like your new restaurant, when you open the new one, everybody's new. They have to learn how to make everything all at
Very
once.
Yeah.
It's hard for them. And then you're like,
That
oh
was
my God, what am I doing to myself?
yeah, my family. Well, I mean, it was all good. My family was incredibly supportive, but like my kids, it's the holidays and they had a couple weeks off school, and like they don't. I mean, they get it, but like, hey, I got to work all day. And it's funny just while we're talking about this, like the slice shop. So like I did that for 15 years. We'd already been in business for 2.5 years here, and I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. Like, we'll just take the recipe we're using for the dough and just make bigger dough balls. And like, I can't even think about like the process I was thinking. And then like, I get in there and we're doing it, and I'm like, this is not working. Or like, we're using the same. We make 14-inch pizzas at pretty
Yeah.
high temperature, 625, 650 degrees here, and I'm like, oh, we'll just cook them at 550, 575 over there, and just bigger. And I'm like, dude, none of this. Where I had to change flat, do all these things with the same thing. As I'm just like, I thought I had it planned.
It's like that's what all life as an entrepreneur, right? You
I,
always
I,
throw a curveball.
I thought I had it figured out. This all made sense in my head, and then you get there, and I'm like, 2 weeks in, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, was I sober when I figured this stuff out? Like, like, what was I thinking? And it's wonderful now, but I actually like, I relish in those opportunities of failure, and like, and it's not even failure, right? Because the customers probably didn't know.
No,
I
yeah.
knew,
Yeah.
because I'm sitting there micromanaging everything or totally freaking out about every detail. But like, I find so much joy after the fact when you have these things where you kind of fall on your face, or you thought you had it planned and you're like, it just doesn't work at all. And you're like, never do that again.
It's definitely humbling, like you said earlier, right? Like you think you have it all figured out, and you're like, you know what? I don't know shit.
Continually.
Yeah. I always say, like, I have a quote, like, being an entrepreneur is literally picking up your phone and being like, yes or oh shit. There's no in between. You either something great happens or something horrible happens. It's never ending. So if you can't deal with that, work for somebody.
Yeah. It's 24/7. And if it's not 24/7, you're probably not doing a great job. And I know that's messed up because I probably should have better boundaries between work and life. But if you turn it off, your business suffers.
Yeah. It's really true. So now, I mean, I know you're only a couple months into this third location, but is the goal for you to open more?
Yeah. So like, one thing that was really cool that we didn't like at the time, but like, so I was working for Pizza Mart as a corporate manager. My brother was
Yeah.
bartending. My dad was still a public school teacher when we started planning this restaurant. And so we all like we didn't need to do anything. We all were pretty comfortable in what we were doing, but we always had this like romantic idea of a family restaurant, with me really taking the lead. And my dad was like, "Cool, you want to do this? I'll help figure out the funding. We'll get the SBA loan, or we'll drum up funding. But you and your brother are writing a business plan, and you're not writing a 10-page business plan. You're writing a business plan that I can submit to SBA, Small Business Administration, for a loan. And they don't fund restaurants for the most part, right? Food
Well,
businesses don't
they're
get,
risky.
yeah, exactly, right? And we didn't have any ownership experience before this. But my brother and I ended up over a couple of years writing a 50 to 60 page business plan with, with all the projections, credit card rates, assumptions, really, really in depth, both financials and a conceptual. And where I'm going with this is we knew from the beginning, before we ever opened, that one of our goals was to expand sustainably and make sure that we're having fun. And so there's not one state of mind's an umbrella idea, right?
Yeah.
It's pizza and local food inspired by the Golden State. And so we're always going to be true to try to feature the bounty of food, beer, wine that we have in California, and it's going to be centered around pizza. And so we want to continue growing, but that doesn't mean that we want to do the same thing over and over and over. So I know we're looking at some more slice shops right now. My brother wants to open a bottle shop and pinball lounge. There might not even be any food there, but doing beer, wine, and pinball. We're big pinball guys.
I like it.
But who knows? I do a wing shop with no pizza, maybe.
You picked a good name too, because State of Mind doesn't have to be pizza. It doesn't have to be anything specific. Like, you didn't put pizza in the name of your business where, all right, you're known for pizza. Like, yeah, you are known for pizza, but you could pivot and do something else and still use the same name, and it could be like your umbrella.
Yeah, that was that was always the plan. And like, I don't want to knock anybody else because it works, but like, Joe's Pizza or Lars's Pizza or like Giuseppe's, like we really wanted to create something that was just different than anything else. So you'd see it and you're like, oh, that's State of Mind. They do this. There's no competition. Like, if
Right.
somebody wants chain pizzeria or Italian American food, they're not even going to think of us. Like, we have nothing to do. We have nothing to do with that. And that was really purposeful in the branding and the organization. Not because there's anything wrong, or I'm not knocking that, because we just want to be our own thing, kind of a lifestyle restaurant brand, if you will. I know that sounds super cheesy, but it is what we thought about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, if that's what you want and you're happy doing it, then that's the goal, right? The goal of life is just to wake up every day and enjoy what you're doing, whatever it is. And no one should judge you for liking what you do, as long as you're not hurting anybody else.
No, try not to.
As long as you wake up and you're happy, that's the goal. And it sounds like that. Let me ask you this, because I know, specifically for me, working with family can be tough. How is it working for family with you?
That's the number one question. It's amazing, honestly.
Is it?
Again, credit my dad completely with this. Is that he, in part of this planning process, that my brother and I'm like, dude, I'm not writing a 50-page business plan, but he also sat and we did. But he also sat us down and was like, look, if we're doing this, we're going to take the family part really seriously, and that you don't get to leave work and take work outside of work. Not to say we don't talk work, but like, if my brother and I are arguing or fighting, which doesn't happen very often, we agree on most things. How to get to the goals, we disagree on. But in terms of my brother and I get along. My wife does all the books. My dad helps with a lot of the stuff. We have another business partner. Everything stays within the four walls of the business in terms of disagreements or upset. We have dinner afterwards. We go to mom's house. We go on vacation, whatever, together. My brother's my best friend. That doesn't mean we get along all the time, but family's always more important than business. Period. And I know that people are like, I don't know how you do that. And I'm like, well, one, it's hard work, but two, it's never been an option.
Right.
We don't have that's not something that's on the table. Which that involves hard work, but where there is no, the family's going to break up over the business. It's just, that's not something we're ever going to do.
That's good. I'm glad that you guys have that, and it's easy to say, but it's hard to do, right? Because emotions get the best of you, and sometimes it's a lot easier. Growing up, you fight with your brother and sister more than you fight with anybody else. But as long as you have a good relationship, I think when it comes hard, people always say that working with family is hard. I think it's hard when somebody has either more say, or like there's two siblings.